What's up, everybody? It's the Power Rankings Podcast, aka the Power Rankings Show. I'm your host, Elliot Harrison, and pleased to be joined, as always, by at Marcus_Mosher. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you doing today?
You mistimed it. You mistimed it. Look, I got to
There's
change
a
it
little
up
bit of a
sometimes.
there's a little bit of a delay. Sometimes your timing is off. It's all right.
Yeah. So we're both wearing our glasses today. I look like John Lennon. I think maybe not John Lennon. I don't know who I look like. You? I. I, I don't
I'm
know.
worried. I'm worried.
I look like if Dave Grohl was studying for like a stats exam. That's what I look
I
like.
look like I think I look like Elton John. There you go.
Yeah, Elton John and Billy Idol had a kid. Yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah, we're going to be bringing on Chad Ryder, who's wearing his glasses today. Actually, he'll be joining us in about 10 minutes or so. We're going to talk about some of the moves lately and what the teams involved those moves are going to do to further help themselves now that they've made those moves or not. So Chad's going to talk about that with us with quite a few of the big moves. We've had so many of them lately, as Stephon Diggs has been prone to point out on Twitter a couple of times now. But real quick, Marcus, wanted to talk about kind of the major news since we logged off last on Tuesday. Tyreek Hill got traded. Your thoughts initially on this? I have some off the field thoughts. What was your first kind of reaction to this deal?
Yeah, I mean the wide receiver market has been crazy this year between two of the top teams in the league, the Chiefs and Packers, both trading away their number one receiver. The Cowboys trading away Amari Cooper, the Allen Robinson going to the Rams. Are teams valuing receivers more now than ever? Because have we ever seen an offseason with multiple receivers traded for first round picks and extra picks and give these guys record setting contracts? So is that what's going on here, Elliot?
Well, the league has always been, I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but someone once called the league a copycat league. So I was just watching. I noticed you muted your mic for a second. I was trying to figure out what you were going to do there. I thought you were going to slurp either a big gulp
As a cough.
or,
I just didn't want to cough into the mic.
well, I thought because I know Big League Chew sent you a lot of gum, I thought you might just pull out a big old thing. So I got all excited for a moment.
No, I
But
still have some, but Blinkily Chew. Make sure you send
yeah,
me another pack. Great.
I know you've never heard ever that the NFL is a copycat league, but
Yeah,
I
never.
actually don't really like that saying. Mine is more that the NFL is a reactionary league. That's what it is. Everyone saw what Cooper Kupp did in the NFC Championship game, the Super Bowl, what he's able to do with the Rams, and of course with Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, and Devontae Adams kind of single-handedly beat the Bengals. Of course, there was a lot of kicker drama.
Yeah, but do you think this is a Cooper Kupp thing? I feel like it's more of a Jamar Chase thing, right?
Oh,
Like,
and I hadn't even gotten there yet.
go ahead. You're just
Home
taking a
slice
while.
cheese money. Oh, that hurts. That hurts. Well, I could, if I were like doing typical sportscaster, I'll tell you what, Tyreek Hill doesn't take very long to get there. So, but I just see this as a reactionary to some of the recent developments in the league. I am a little surprised by it. I'll tell you. Did you feel like the Dolphins gave up too much?
No, I didn't. Actually, I'm surprised they didn't have to give up more because you're getting, in my estimation, the most dynamic and the most game-changing receiver that we've seen since Calvin Johnson, maybe Randy Moss, right? And now what you've done is you've set Tua up to succeed. And if he doesn't, Elliot, at least you know that you don't have a franchise quarterback and you have some organizational clarity, right? So I love it that they're giving Tua all the weapons, and if it doesn't work out this year, you move on. You have two first round picks in 2023, and you go get yourself another quarterback. I love it for Miami.
I love it too. If you're watching on Brinks TV and you see what I'm doing, I got a cowlick and it's just driving me nuts. I actually don't disagree with you on that part of it, although I have some off-field ideas about this. But would it be crazy to say I'm going on Sirius XM with Michael Fabiano tonight, and I was telling him on the phone that, you know, Is it crazy to say Tyreek Hill's a WR2 on his own team?
It's very possible, right? I love Jalen Waddle, and I think he's a star. And I asked you this question today, Elliot. Is this the fastest wide receiver duo we've ever seen in NFL history?
Yeah. Well, okay. So two parts to that. First part being, I think Tyreek Hill's numbers are going to go a little down this year, but not precipitously, because I actually could see him running for 200 or 300 yards and a couple touchdowns in that offense. So he might make up, but his passing production, I think, might be down. So that's the kind of the fantasy angle there. To your other question, this is the fastest, assume they're starters, right?
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill. And I mean, I guess that's an assumption, but it's a safe assumption. This is the fastest pair of starting receivers that I can think of. Now, if we're talking fastest receiver group, dude, the 92, 93 Raiders, oh my gosh. I mean, it was a track team, dude. It was James Jett. Do you remember James Jett?
Of course, yes.
The guy could fly. It was Willie Galt, who was Olympic sprinter speed. It was Rocket Ismail, insane speed and acceleration, and Tim Brown. By the way, Heisman Trophy winner from Notre Dame that's in the Hall of Fame. That team could, and this was a young Tim Brown. This isn't late possession receiver or Raiders Bucks Super Bowl Tim Brown. That team, literally, I remember somebody saying, I might have read it in Street and Smith at the time, that literally the Raiders had a U.S. Olympic relay team at wide receiver. Yeah. So that would be my fastest receiver group, not starters though. This is elite. A couple off the field things though, Marcus, I want to get your thoughts on. One of them is just simply, if you look at this trade, you say that the Dolphins didn't overpay. Does this make the Amari Cooper trade look bad for the Cowboys and good for the Browns?
Yes and no. I think once the Cowboys telegraphed that they were going to cut Amari if it didn't work out via trade, his value tanked. And let's be honest, I love Amari Cooper as much as probably Amari Cooper's mom, but he's not as good of a receiver as Davante Adams and Tyreek Hill. He's just not. And he's getting a little bit older. He's having a little bit harder time staying on the field. So no, it wasn't that surprising to me.
Who's going to be more valuable, Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins or Allen Robinson with the Rams?
Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins.
That would seem like an easy layup, but just a little thought here. You got Robert Woods coming off a knee injury, right? And we don't, and then they missed him for how many games did Robert Woods miss last year?
Yeah, like half the season. Yep.
Yeah. Odell Beckham hurt his knee in the Super Bowl. The Rams are obviously going to try to get the number one seed. If Allen Robinson, having him without other players available to go along with Cooper Kupp, gets them off to a 4-0 start and it gets them, in a position where they can get the number one seed, I would actually argue that Allen Robinson, because I don't know that Tyreek Hill pushes Miami over the top until they have better quarterback play.
I don't know if it puts Miami over the top, but I think it makes them a legitimate contender for the playoffs. And I think the Rams are going to be really good, regardless if they had Allen Robinson or not. They've got other weapons with Van Jefferson and Tutu Atwell, and they'll find production from that other wide receiver. This one for Miami, it gives them a legitimate chance to compete in maybe the toughest conference we've ever seen before.
Maybe so. I just thought the Allen Robinson move I had already forgotten about it, kind of. I think everyone did because of the moves we've seen lately with Davante Adams and Tyreek Hill. Made me think of that. Another issue with this move is inflated contracts with the wide receivers. How do you feel about the money being paid these guys? And how do you feel about some of the money that's being reported that isn't actually true money with these deals?
Yeah, that's an agent game, right? The agents will text Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport first, and they'll give them the numbers. And that way that Schefter or Rappaport can break the news and they get to control how much they say the contracts are for. None of that really matters. All that matters is the guaranteed money. And these deals, while a lot of people are saying they're record-breaking, they're not all that different than what DeAndre Hopkins got from the Cardinals or what Julio Jones got from the Falcons. So, yeah, they're big numbers on Twitter and stuff, but I just don't think they matter all that much.
For Kansas City, this is a huge loss. I think it's really unfortunate that you can't keep a core of star players together. It's gotten to the point where it's just all about keeping your quarterback, and that's it in the league. And it's something Marcus and I are going to talk about on Friday's podcast, the quarterback position, where it stands, and really, is it enhancing the sport or hurting the sport? That's something we're going to talk about. Last thing here, Tyreek Hill money, is he worth it? Contract details. Do you feel like this is the right amount to pay?
Absolutely, because I think he's an absolute game changer, not only from the production he can give you, but look at the way teams have to play that offense. Like last year for Kansas City, teams were playing strictly cover 2 defense against them because they were so terrified of the speed. Now, Kansas City decided not really to run the ball, but when they did, they were highly successful. If that happens in Miami with Mike McDaniel and that rushing attack, which I think is going to be really good, they're going to be really hard to stop on offense. So getting somebody that has the kind of gravitational pull to attract the entire defense away. How about that?
Yeah.
And you have 2 of those guys on the same offense. I think it's going to be, how about this, a force multiplier for the rest of the offense.
Yeah, it's a full force multiplier of insanity for me is the leaf blowers being right outside my door. My gosh. By the way, 4 years, $120 million as the Tyreek Hill contract. Everyone got excited about Von Miller's 6-year, $120 million. I get the difference between these players, their age and stuff. Just saying, a lot of money there. But with that, let's bring in, I promised him after 12 minutes, we'd bring him in. Let's bring in Chad Ryder from NFL.com, my former colleague, at Chad_Ryder, REUTER on Twitter. He does draft analysis. If you haven't listened to our podcast before, for NFL.com, been doing it for a long time. And he looks good. He's a handsome man. Got a lot of gray in the stubble, though. I got to tell you, a lot more than you used to have, sir. How's it going?
Makes me look smarter than I actually am. And by the way, I think we've done enough of these podcasts that you don't have to call me a former colleague. I think we're still colleagues. I think that counts. Yeah.
Listen, I didn't want people to know that we both did a country music video together. So Chad has no idea what I'm talking about.
Fishing in the Dark was fantastic. When we did a remake of that, I think it's
such a good song.
Yeah, I think people need to search for that on YouTube because we did a great job with that, by the way.
Yeah, you're phenomenal. So, Chad, what do you have for us today? Because, I saw your list. I know, but I want you to say.
Well, obviously all of these trades that have happened have had impacts on the NFL draft. And we'll start out here on the beautiful graphic there on the right. We're talking about the Raiders.
Yeah, look at that.
Obviously, getting Davante Adams is great. They will probably, maybe finish 3rd in that division now instead of 4th. That's fantastic for them.
Come on.
Chad. Podcast.
It's just tough. It's just tough.
Wait a minute. Your notes specifically said that we were going to talk about losing Zay Jones and its importance, and that was more important than Davante Adams.
Yes, exactly. No, but I think, now they don't pick until 86, which is in the 3rd round, and they have... Yeah. They've done some good stuff in free agency, obviously getting Chandler Jones and Adams and et cetera, but they still need to bolster the offensive line. And, they need to be able to, I know everybody's going to pass in the AFC West. I get that, but they still could use some interior linemen on the defensive side too, to not only get pressure on that quarterback, to make sure that teams aren't, sneaking off big runs on them as well. So they have some work to do. So I'm thinking offensive lineman, which is it's good deep in day 2 this year, or a defensive lineman in that spot at 86.
Yeah, I think those are both good spots. I would also mention linebackers. So they're starting Denzel Perryman and Divine Diablo, a 3rd round pick from last year. They just don't have a lot of linebacker depth. So 3rd round, if you can get a Channing Tindall or a Troy Anderson or somebody like that can come in and give you some snaps, I think that makes some sense.
I thought linebackers don't matter, Marcus. That's
well, they don't. Yeah. Check out LB's don'tmatter.com and you'll go right to my Twitter account.
Yeah. No, I agree. Those guys would be good values for them. And
listen, as much as you've been cooking out on the grill, Marcus, you're right. LBs don't matter.
LBs don't matter, baby.
Oh boy. All right. Hey, I have a question, Chad. So, I'm not the draft Nick that you guys are. But just kind of coming from a layperson's point of view and some things that I know, kind of the criticism of the Mike Mayock regime when he was GM for the Raiders was that they really missed on these top picks, right? But if you look at some of their later picks, guys like Brian Edwards, they've actually found, and I'm just cherry picking one guy. I think he was a 3rd round pick. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, they've actually found some pretty good contributors there. Am I crazy about that?
No. Well, and about that, no, you're not crazy.
Okay.
Other ways,
right.
Maybe. But no, absolutely not. And I think when they looked at players, they picked the best football players they thought that they would get at those spots. And they weren't necessarily within the value where they should have picked them. And I think that's where you get into trouble when you're in the first round, the first, second round. If you jump on guys that you like as football players without taking into account the athleticism, positional value, some of this other stuff as well, that's where the problems come in. But in the later rounds, that's not as big of an issue because the talent is much even more even through those. So I think it was really, they did a good job in some of those picks, and it happens with all administrations, right? It's just they get some really good picks later in the draft, and some guys they wish they wouldn't. And this has happened with Bill Belichick. This has happened with any GM out there. It's not just what happened with the Raiders.
I will say this really quickly. There's no team in the league that's been better at drafting on day 3 than the Mike Mayock Raiders. They got Max Crosby, Pro Bowler, Hunter Renfrow, Pro Bowler. Yeah. Foster Moreau's a good player. Nate Hobbs is a starting slot corner last year. I mean, they got a lot of not just good players, but Pro Bowl players on day 3. That doesn't happen hardly ever.
You know what's funny about this is if you hit on guys like that and your early round selections don't work out, the later round selections get more playing time. Yep. And they actually get on the field more if your first round, second round pick don't work out. So it's interesting how that plays out for your team. It could actually make your late round picks look better, and they get the opportunities.
Well, sometimes they really are better players, and that's all they need is an opportunity to show it. I think they got Josh Jacobs in the 2nd round that year. They got Edwards in the 3rd.
Yep.
Or was he
Edwards
first? And then Moreau was 4th, right?
Yep.
4th round?
Yep.
Yeah. He made some plays for them last year, Moreau, when they really needed it. So, all right, enough on the Raiders here. Let's go to the Indianapolis Colts. That's next on our rundown. Obviously, they acquired Matt Ryan. What are you thinking here, Chad?
Well, obviously, they don't have a first-round pick because they, for some reason, gave that up for Carson Wentz. So now, but they did get a nice switch in the 2nd round from 47 to 42. And a lot of people are like, who cares, 5 picks, whatever. That can make a difference because the legitimate 2nd round prospects, tier 3 or 4 prospects, can stop in that 45 to 50 area. So not only are you making sure you get that player in that tier that you want, but you're also able to potentially move back up into the late 1st round if there's somebody that you like. So just watch for that. They could make a move in the 1st round because of that, or they could really even make a move up into the top part of the 2nd round to find a guy that probably should have been picked in the 1st. So that's an important part of that trade with Washington when they sent Wentz away. So that's important. Of course, they're not going to re-sign Eric Fisher, so they desperately need a left tackle. So you look at Bernard Raymond from Central Michigan would be a great pick for them at that point. Very similar to Braden Smith, actually, who they got in the 2nd round not too long ago. And then the wide receiver, I think, is the other position, right? You need, I don't know. I don't know that they can count on Paris Campbell. I just don't. Maybe he makes this big leap with Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan's an excellent quarterback. And I think he will, if Paris Campbell's in the right spot, he will find him and throw him the ball. So we'll see how that works out. But I think wide receiver and left tackle have to be where they're looking at 42.
Yeah, it's just really nice that the Colts got an adult at quarterback, right, Elliot? That's the most important thing here. I actually think the Colts are in a really good spot to draft a quarterback. I know that they just gave up a 3rd round pick for Matt Ryan, but isn't this the perfect team to take? Let's say Matt Corral is available at pick 33. You go up and get Matt Corral. You sit him behind Matt Ryan for two 2 years, and let's see what you have, because I don't think this team can put all of their eggs in one basket like they did last year at quarterback. That's what I would like to see the Colts do.
Yeah, but the problem is that a quarterback has to be available to them in the late part of the first round. And I'm going to tease my mock draft that's coming out tomorrow, but I'll tell you that they'll have to trade up a lot higher than 28 to get one of those top 5 quarterbacks, in my opinion. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Nobody knows what's going to happen 6 weeks from now, but I think if one of those quarterbacks is available for them, then you're absolutely correct. And actually, I was thinking about that in my first mock draft. Somebody will trade up and to get one of these quarterbacks. So We'll see what happens.
Two things. One's going to open up a can of worms, so I'm just going to make the comment and leave the room. The first thing, though, is, Marcus, you should put your glasses back on, bro. Your left eye is going to continue to bother you if you
That's all right.
don't. He's got the anti-glare glasses, Chad, for the blue light.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I've heard those work really good, but
They help you sleep. Yeah.
Okay, here's my little say this and leave the room. I don't think that strategy works anymore. The idea of drafting a guy and developing him behind another guy at quarterback, the league has totally changed. What you want now is a quarterback that can play from day one or by the latest year 2 so that you can win while he makes no money and you can build a team around him. That's the formula now for winning in the NFL. I think it sucks, but that's the truth. That's the way to win. It's all predicated on quarterback finances, which, again, is something we're going to talk about tomorrow. So I just don't think you can afford to do that. And frankly, I think the Colts are smart. Just keep signing veteran guys on a 1-year deal and see if you can win the championship, because it's all about winning now. It's not about building your team for the future anymore. It's about now. What's wrong with renting Phillip Rivers for a year? What's wrong with renting Matt Ryan for a year or two and just going for it? Nobody cares if a guy stays on your team for 8 years anymore. That's just my quick little take. And like I said, we could probably spend an hour discussing that, but do you guys disagree with that, though?
Yeah, I think you're not wrong in that. I think teams are okay getting veterans, but in the end, I think if you can have a veteran and pick that young quarterback, Patrick Mahomes is a perfect example. He didn't have to play right away because they had Alex Smith, right? So this has happened even in recent past. It's not that unusual. And I think getting a quarterback and then drafting one is actually the way to go, because you don't want to have to play him week 1. If you don't want to wait 4 years, but I think if you can rest him that first, you say rest him. Look, a team is going to take a young quarterback and they're going to have a veteran, and that veteran's going to be out after week 4, right? That's what happens anyway, even if you have a veteran in it. So I think it's a smart move to get a quarterback, a veteran, and draft a guy and see what happens through competition, through whatever. When this has happened with, oh my God, now I can't even think of his name, Russell Wilson and Matt Flynn. This has happened, several times. I think you can do it both ways. But the problem is if you get a veteran, if you get Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, that's fine. But if you get Mitch Trubisky, there's no way I'm just letting that guy play quarterback and not drafting another guy to compete with him. So If you get a Hall of Famer, great. If you don't, you got to get a second guy.
All right, I want to move this along for sure, but just to be fair, there's a huge difference between Matt Ryan and Matt Flynn, and there's a huge difference between drafting Patrick Mahomes high and the Colts moving up a little bit to get somebody at the end of the first round. It's not going to be the same level of talent as a Patrick Mahomes. That's what I'm driving at.
Can I just say, though, that Elliot, Tom Brady sat, right, for a couple of years. Aaron Rodgers sat for a couple of years, right? Patrick Mahomes sat for a year, right?
The business of pro football. Hold on. The business of pro football is totally different now than it was then.
But here's
totally different.
If getting a quarterback and letting them sit for a year is the best way to develop a franchise quarterback, that's all that really matters, because you can still pay those guys $40 million a year, still steal. Go ahead. We can move on.
Yeah. Saquon Barkley would have been a smart first round pick in 2008 or 9, not in today's game. So, all right. So Chad, the next team you have on your list are the Green Bay Packers. Obviously they traded Devontae Adams, kind of a weird saga, right? Paying Aaron Rodgers a truckload of money and then losing his top target. What did they do?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious they're going to have to draft somebody, but it's going to be interesting to see. Right now they have 2 picks. And there's going to be a lot of competition late in the first round. It's not just going to, Green Bay is just not going to sit there and be like, hey, we want this wide receiver. Let's take them. I mean, there's going to be teams moving up from the second round, teams moving up from the bottom of the first, into the later or up into the first to get receivers. So it's going to be competition. So they're going to have to fight to get somebody that they really like. So they'll end up getting one. They'll probably end up getting one receiver and then being able to meet another need, which I think is probably an offensive tackle is my guess.
Yeah.
So between those two things, that's the way they'll go. But they may have to trade up. Even with the 2 picks, they may have to trade up with one of those picks to go get somebody. So that's going to be really interesting. And by the way, they will probably take a second receiver on day 2, is my guess. I think Kansas City and Green Bay will probably both end up taking a guy in round 2 or 3, in addition to whoever they get in the first round.
I'm more interested in the sequencing here for the Packers. Do they go offensive tackle first and then wide receiver? Or do they feel like they have to overdraft a receiver because they're afraid of what the Cowboys might do at 24 or what the Cardinals might do at 25? I would be tempted to draft the offensive lineman at 22, whether that is one of the offensive tackles that falls or Zion Johnson, because I don't think that position stretches quite as well as wide receiver.
Do you have a camera into my house? I mean, I have. Did you look at my mock before I came on here right now? I just want to know because
the editor.
Because I just say that I think that's a real possibility.
Oh man, now you guys really are like D&D nerds. Like if you ever watch 2 guys playing D&D and one looks at the other, it's like, man, when you put the Minotaur in that 5th room in the dungeon, like that was awesome, bro. It's so good. And then
I
you
got
rolled
plus
a 19.
12 armor, buddy. Don't you worry about it. We're good.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Next team up, New Orleans Saints. So the Saints re-signed Jameis Winston. I told Marcus, if you didn't catch our Tuesday pod, Marcus ranked the 10 quarterback moves of the offseason, and his sneaky good pick was Trubisky going to Pittsburgh. My sneaky good one or pick move, my sneaky good move was the Saints re-signing Jameis Winston. So I like this, Chad, given that the Saints still have some star players on that defense. They've got continuity in that Dennis Allen is taking over. He was already there. I think they're going to run the football more. They'll have that available to them more this year. But what are they missing to go from being maybe a wild card team to being Super Bowl contender Saints?
Yeah, and they give Winston more guaranteed money than like Trubisky and all that. So I think they understand that this guy is a starting quality player. Mm-hmm. And if you wouldn't have been hurt last year, I would have been really interested to see how far that team would have went.
Me too.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise, I think they have to be looking offensive tackle now that Trent Armstead is gone. You have to look at that in the first round, even if they have to trade up. I mean, Sean Payton's not there anymore, but I think they're still going to be one of these teams that are willing to trade up to get like a Charles Cross or somebody to go to play that left tackle spot. So that's what I'm looking for in the first round. But they also need a receiver. And so it'll be really interesting to see if they are one of these teams picking off one of these receivers, in the first round as well, or waiting until round 2 maybe to make that pick. Because there's enough depth at receiver this year where they can get a guy in round 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think that's the better option because I don't know if there's anybody at 18 that makes a ton of sense for them, but they have, I think, the slowest offense in the NFL right now, all the way down from wide receiver, quarterback, running back. Their slot receiver is little Jordan Humphrey, who ran in the 4.6s. Michael Thomas hasn't played basically in 2 years, and he wasn't fast before his injury. Marcus Callaway, the other receiver, is not a burner. They've got to get faster on offense. So can they talk themselves into somebody like Jameson Williams in round 1, or do they look at quarterback? Because Jameis signed a 2-year deal. That certainly does not prevent you from going out and drafting somebody to compete, for maybe once Tom Brady is officially gone in the division. I think they need to solve that quarterback problem sooner rather than later.
Now, that's a different point. This is a different situation than the Colts when I was talking about drafting a quarterback. If you're drafting a quarterback to compete with the potential of being able to start in year 1 when he's making no money, I love it for this team. But, Chad, what is pick 18 Pick 18 is the best team that didn't make the playoffs, right? Because 19 through 32 belong to the playoff spots. So that's what the Saints were. That's why I think with Jameis, this team could really do something. I like this one from you. How about the Washington Commanders?
First of all, I just like to say that Marcus apparently is not an Ian book believer. I just want to get that out of the way.
No, Elliot is. Elliot's all in on the book train.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll just move on from there then. For Washington, anyway. Look, they got Wentz. Yay! Hooray! Parade! Right? We're good with that. But they didn't have to give up as much as the Colts did for Wentz, which is good. And they could still why quarterback as well. And look, we talk about the people, as you mentioned before, are saying like, oh, maybe some of these quarterbacks will be available at the end of the first round. Panthers, Lions, Steelers, Washington, Saints. There's a lot of teams looking for quarterbacks. So just keep that in mind as we're talking about this. But if they don't go that direction, they got to get a wide receiver. I mean, they just don't have enough guys around Wentz right now. And I really think that they're going to be in a good position to pick one of these guys at 11. I have notes 13, but they're being 11th. And I think that's a good spot for them to get one of the guys that they want.
Chad, where did Terry McLaurin go to school?
That school that we in the Big Ten don't like to talk about very much.
Where did Curtis Samuel go to school?
That same place.
I think they're going to go back to that same school at pick 11. I think they're going to go Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver from Ohio State, build out this Ohio State offense in Washington. It makes a lot of sense. I think his game fits well with McLaurin. I agree with you. I think a quarterback is on the board. They're doing a lot of research on Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis, but I think ultimately a wide receiver is going to be the pick there.
And Ohio University, I think it's called, something like that.
Yeah, I just don't know how these guys are going to get reps with Art Monk, Gary Clark, Ricky Sanders.
Right.
There's just not much of the pie left there.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, the Smurfs are back, baby.
The Smurfs. Speaking of old school, I really wish this next team would just go back to their old helmet for 1 year. But I know they can't. They can't change the helmet. But all right, Seattle Seahawks. What do you got?
Now what? After the Rush trade, like what are they going to do now? And they're going to be in a hunt for a quarterback early in the draft. It's going to be so great if Baker Mayfield ends up there. I mean, that'll be the greatest thing ever. I just would love that. Just see that drama play out. But they're going to be in the mood. They're going to be in the mood they're going to be in a hunt for a quarterback at some point. And again, if they don't end up, if let's say they get Baker, and they're certainly not going to draft. I mean, could you imagine Baker Mayfield's mindset if they drafted a guy after picking up Baker? I think offensive, if they can get a guy like Ikem Ekwonu at 9, that's like a perfect Seahawks pick. A guy that's like 6'4", super wide, just likes to kill people. Perfect Seahawks pick for them. And they need desperately. They tried signing Trenton Brown, didn't work. They went back to the Patriots. And I think the Seahawks would love a guy like that at 9. Of course, you could also pick a cornerback. A lot of people are saying that as well. It makes sense. But I think it's quarterback or offensive lineman if that value is there for him.
And I'll add another position, edge rusher for them. You look at their current edge rusher situation, and it's bad. I think that Seattle believes that they can still win in the NFL by just being really good on defense, running the crap out of the ball, and minimizing the quarterback position. So if they can get somebody like a Kayvon Thibodeau, who maybe is falling a little bit, to have him stay in the Pacific Northwest, I think it makes some sense.
Yeah, I think I can't remember if I had him going there. Well, I can't remember now what I had him. But yeah, 8, 9, 10 is about the right spot for him. So I think that's a real possibility as well.
If Baker Mayfield and DK Metcalf walk into a room at the Seattle facility, how many adults are in the room?
It's going to be awesome.
1.5.
Marcus.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Oh boy. That's just, I was telling Chad, I was telling Marcus, I don't know if you heard our pod on, I hate calling it a pod. I don't know why I did that, but on Tuesday, and how this whole thing of adult is going to become a thing now. Like, a team saying, look, he's got a good arm. He's accurate. He can move out of the pocket and he's an adult. It's going to be like the new thing.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, Chad's silence pretty much says it all. He didn't listen on Tuesday. All right, let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. They traded Matt Ryan, but they did acquire Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mosher and I both kind of liked that. A lot of upside here. Before we get into what the Falcons could do, just real quick, I know, Chad, you were obviously doing this for a living when Marcus Mariota was the second overall pick. Do you think this guy might still have something to offer? I mean, he's still really quick. The Raiders used him in packages. What did you think of this?
Well, I thought it was a good signing. The contract that they signed him to did not scream, hey, you're going to be our starter for the next 3 years. And I think they realistically understand where he's at in this point of his career. But he's a really good guy to have on your roster. And again, I think they're going to take a quarterback early in this draft. So, but they don't have to play that quarterback as much this year if they don't think that person is ready. So I think it's a great pick. They know that the NFC is the conference where you can get into the playoffs and make a run at this point, even with sure Tampa Bay and Green Bay are going to be, kind of at the top, and then the Rams, obviously, but it's not like the AFC where it's going to be tough to even get in the playoffs. So if they can get themselves at least into a winning position by having Marcus Mariota, they have another quarterback, they continue to build the defense through the draft. I think it's a smart move for them to pick him up, but I still think they're going to go quarterback early in this draft, and they have extra picks the rest of the draft to meet other needs.
Yeah, quarterbacks are obviously the most important thing in the league. I mean, we're going to dive into that tomorrow. But some franchises just aren't ready to draft a quarterback yet. And I think that applies to the Falcons. You look at that roster, and it's bad. It's crap. It really is. I think this might be one of the worst rosters in the NFL. There's no receivers to throw to. The offensive line is very overrated. The pass rushers are not good. They have one corner in A.J. Terrell. I think you got to build this team back up from the ground, because if you draft a Malik Willis or a Kenny Pickett, they're going to fail there. They just absolutely will. I don't see how the Falcons are ready to take a quarterback yet.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting because I understand what you're saying there, and that has worked in some situations. But you also have the Bengals. The Bengals were not a good team when they picked Joe Burrow. That's why they were picking first, right? I mean, if you believe in a guy that much, you have to take him, in my opinion, and you have to continue to build around him. The Bengals weren't going to go anywhere with Joe Burrow before they got Jamar Chase. I mean, they weren't going to the Super Bowl, and I think they're going to continue to build the roster. So I would take that guy if I believe. Now, if you don't believe in any of these guys, then you're right. You take the wide receiver, you take Drake London, you take somebody, whoever else you think has good value at that pick. But I think you get that quarterback and you build around him, because the other part of it is, let's just say they play Marcus Mariota and they're just good enough to be in the middle of the first round again, right? Then you're in the same position you were the year before. And I think that no NFL team believes, hey, let's just suck next year and play for Bryce Young. I mean, the Dolphins owner thought that once. I'm not going to get into that.
They sucked this year with Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley for half the season. I don't get the delusion that Matt Ryan's going to get them close to the playoffs. I just don't see it. Allie, I'm going to read you some names. Are you ready? It's Chad Hansen, it's Christian Blake, it's Frank Darby, and Olamide Zaccheaus. Do you know who those people are?
All of them very, very intimately.
Those are the starting receivers for your Atlanta Falcons going into the draft right now. You cannot draft a quarterback yet. This team is not ready.
If I was one of Marcus Mariota's friends and I was, we're on the couch, we're playing Star Wars Battlefront, maybe Crash Bandicoot, and one of Marcus's favorite games.
Yep.
And I might just look at him after he gets off the phone with his agent and he says, hey, I'm going to get to be a starter again. I might look at him, look at the Falcons roster and be like, you sure you don't want to just hold a clipboard for another?
But don't you think the reason they got Marcus Mariota is because he doesn't throw to receivers very often. He throws to running backs and tight ends. So it's it's the best quarterback with our crappy skill players.
I actually like the move because there's one thing that we're not considering here, I think, which is it's if people evaluated Marcus Mariota to be the second overall pick in the draft, no one was surprised by that when he went second overall to Jameis. It's an indictment of the entire scouting draft analysis process if only 6-7 years later you're saying that guy can't play at all, unless he's a guy like Jamarcus Russell or someone like that. But if it's someone like this, it's actually played decent football, and just 6-7 years later, you're saying, yeah, this guy can't play at all. So my point being is, what if Marcus Mariota goes in there and plays like the second overall pick in a draft? What if he astonishes people by, hey, the time off helped him, made him do more mental reps? I don't know. Is this out of the realm of possibility for you guys? Maybe with the lack of weapons, but
he's fine. He's fine. He's an adult at the quarterback position, and that's what the Falcons need just to get him through this transition period.
Hey, Chad, you've been a fan for a long time. Do you remember who won the Super Bowl in 1980 over the Eagles?
Who was that again?
And beat the Redskins 3 years later, Super Bowl 18. That would be the Raiders, and one Jim Plunkett, who was the first overall pick in the draft, who everyone had given up on, completely given up on him, Phil Simms, believe it or not, the Giants had given up. The Giants played a guy named Scott Bruner over Phil Simms, literally because he had been hurt so much. I'm just saying it has happened. And listen, if you want to go more recent memory, I don't want to say people gave up on him, but the Giants were totally fine to get rid of Kurt Warner. And the Cardinals drafted Matt Leinart and said it's his job if he beats you out. Now, Kurt Warner wasn't a high pick, but I think you guys get the point here. Okay, enough about that. Let's go to number one. You've got the Carolina Panthers. This is a really interesting and boring team at the same time. I have no idea what they're going to do to get themselves back in contention, but I feel like this is a team that you just don't hear much about at all. I don't feel people really care right now.
Well, they're in the division with the Buccaneers. So where are they going to go? Right. I mean, that's the thing. They're not going to win that division, but they got to get
back. Who's quarterback?
Because David Tepper is not going to put up with another bad season. The whole group's going to be gone. This is very similar to what the Bears went through last year. And I was, saying, look, the Bears have to take a quarterback. They have to take a quarterback in the first round. They're going to move up with the Giants to get a quarterback. And that's what they're going to do because they have to, because they have no other choice. Because if they don't show promise this year, if this isn't it, they're going to be done. Their jobs are going to be done. So the Carolina's probably going to take another quarterback. They're not going to think that Sam Darnold's going to be their guy. I don't know how you go into the system thinking Sam Darnold's your guy this season. You can't. So you have to give yourselves a chance and at a future. They've been in every pro day. Matt Rule is licking his chops at these guys. That's what they're going to do, most likely. Now, if they somehow believe Sam Darnold's it, then you build your other parts of your team with an offensive lineman and whatever. But that's not what I'm seeing from them. And so that's my guess as to what they're going to end up doing.
The Panthers have one pick inside the top 135 selections in this year's draft, and it's at pick 6. If I'm the GM of the Panthers, I'm not letting Matt Rule take another quarterback. I'm not. I'm letting him sink or swim with Sam Darnold, who he wanted last year. I'm using that pick to draft an offensive lineman because if Matt Rule can't figure it out, I want to have next year open to go get a different quarterback, my new head coach. I'm just not letting Matt Rule ruin another year and another draft. Sorry, some of these franchises are just so infuriating to me. That's all.
Just an interesting point because Sam Darnold went 3rd overall, right, in the 2018 draft. Marcus Mariota went 2nd overall. And there's no comparison between these two guys. And Sam Darnold got an opportunity to start again. Marcus Mariota's never gotten an opportunity to start again. He went straight to the Raiders, who put him behind, Derek Carr. Just so you guys know, Marcus Mariota's last year playing, he had 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions because he missed part of the year. He had a 92 passer rating each of his last 2 years. In fact, 4 out of his 5 years in the league, he had well over a 90 passer rating. And oh, by the way, he's been a pretty effective rusher in his career as well. He averages 6 yards a carry for his career. I mean, I'm just saying, Sam Darnold, I agree. I don't really see the upside. I see the upside with Marcus Mariota. I think there's a big difference. Am I crazy?
No, I'd rather have Mariota.
Talk about it.
For sure. for sure. But that doesn't mean that the Falcons are going to stand pat with him. That those two things are separate. But yeah, there's no question that he's got another chance. But look, the second chances don't come around that often. And you're right. Sometimes it works out for these guys. But, it doesn't – when you have a chance and you really – again, it's all about believing in these new guys, right? Sometimes the devil you don't have is better than the devil you have, so to speak. And teams are going to take – and we don't know what's going to happen with these guys down the line. We don't know. But all I'm looking at is what decision they have to make today. And based on the information that they have today. And the Falcons didn't give Marcus Mariota a contract that screams, hey, we believe in you. You're going to be our guy for the next 3 to 4 years. Here's $20 million a year. You're our guy, whatever. That's not what that contract says at all. And so based on that and based on the fact that they have interest in some of these guys, I don't think he's going to be the only guy that's on the table for them this year. But I wish him all the luck in the world, Elliot. I hope he's awesome. I hope he's an all-pro, and I hope he throws 74 touchdowns with 0 interceptions.
I'm just making the point here. Marcus, look at Chad's rundown here, okay? Seriously, let's just look at it for a second. Saints at the 5th team here. Jameis Winston, former first overall pick, currently getting his second chance. Carson Wentz, second overall pick, getting his third chance.
Right.
Potentially Baker Mayfield, Seattle's your third team here, potentially getting his second chance. Marcus Mariota never got a second chance, never got one. Sam Darnold on his second chance. Do you see? It doesn't fit, does it? And honestly, Marcus Mariota, you're going to tell me he didn't play as well as Baker Mayfield? I mean, maybe peak Baker Mayfield and peak Carson Wentz were a little bit better. But I'm just making the point, especially in today's game where Mariota's skill set does translate. It's just a thought. Real quick, other than so Marcus, if you said you wouldn't want Matt Rule to get a chance to work with another quarterback, it's like, hey, sink or swim with the guy you wanted.
Yep.
Let's say, guys, that the Panthers have to sink or swim with Sam Darnold. Where do you two guys think Carolina needs to go to make Sam Darnold's job a lot easier? What do they draft? What do they do with their draft capital? Who do they draft, I should say?
I think it's got to be an offensive tackle. Their offensive tackles were awful last year. A guy, Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa, I think makes a lot of sense, could play left or right tackle. That's where I would go for them. At least give your quarterback a chance. But they've got a lot of needs on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I'd go tackle early too. That's where the best value is. Ekwonu probably at that spot would be the guy that I would look at, and they'll have to fill out. The thing is I wonder. I have to remember when they made that Darnold trade, if their current GM Scott Fitterer was already in the building when that happened or not, because I'm not sure that was only Matt Rule that made that decision. So if that's not the case, then you can't just blame Rule for that.
So Fitterer came in late January.
Yeah. So, it's and it's also interesting because it doesn't matter what either of those two think. That's David Tepper's team. and he's gonna napalm everything if they're not showing promise. So that's going to be really interesting.
Good.
Guys, just on this topic too about second chances. The Falcons did give another quarterback a second chance. Jeff George was the first overall pick in 1990, and he kind of flamed out with the Colts, and the Falcons gave him an opportunity. A lot of teams gave Jeff George a chance. Chad, you remember back in the day, but it was his attitude that really soured. Do you remember the June Jones, Jeff George flare up on the sideline when they argued? I think it was on the national game. Anyway,
I was actually at, I think, what may have been Jeff George's final start in the NFL with Washington in Green Bay, the first game after 9/11. I was at the game, and I think that might have been his last start in the NFL.
I know the Bears picked him up a couple of years later. I was trying to think of guys who had been really high picks. Just back to Carolina real quick. you guys see any way, even if they knock this draft out of the park, that they're competing with the Saints and the Bucks in this division?
No,
Probably not.
Because they have Sam Darnold as a quarterback. So no, I don't see it.
I understand, but wouldn't you say they're better off than the Falcons are, Marcus? I think they are.
Their roster is better than Atlanta for sure. I mean,
third in the division makes sense. And again, they have some guys on defense. Washington
they've got at least pieces in the right spots. The talent still is not very good, but compared to Atlanta, it's not even close.
You could make the playoffs in the NFC this year at 9-8 or whatever it is nowadays. So exactly. So they could be in the mix if everything goes right for them. But they're not going to beat out. The Saints are sort of a question mark, right? I mean, Sean Payton's not in that building. We don't know what's going to happen. They have a lot of talent, though. I mean, they're still really good, but there's question marks there. There's question marks there,
but their talent just compared to those other two teams is so much better, right? Yeah. And they've got a quarterback that's now going into his third year with the team. So in a familiar offensive coordinator, same defensive coordinator there in Dennis Allen. I just feel much better about that team winning 9 games.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and on the subject of second chances, can we count Dennis Allen's first opportunity as when he was the Raiders head coach? I know that didn't go well. I'm trying to remember what season that was. Was it 14?
Yeah, was it right after? No,
it was either 13 or 14. Now I got to look. I want to say it was 14 that he was the head coach there, but I actually
2012 was 2014.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Very good. Very good. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Saints. I tell you, and I think I've said this every week, when I hear you guys talk about the draft, it makes me a lot more interested in the draft, because now when I'm watching the draft, I've heard all of you guys' strategies, and so I'm really curious now, like what these teams are actually going to do. If there's one team, go ahead.
You can come to my house and we'll have nachos and we'll watch the draft together. It'll be a lot of fun. Doesn't that sound great to you?
Quick 30 seconds here. Which one of these teams is most likely to either surprise you with who they pick or surprise you by what they end up doing with their picks this year? Chad, Marcus, who would be the one team on this group
that are going to surprise with their picks?
Like what surprise you in the draft? Because I have one in mind, but
okay. Why don't you give me your example? Because asking me who's likely to surprise me seems a little strange, Elliot. Like if they're going to surprise me, why would I think they're likely to do so? I'm just following the logic here a little bit. So just tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're thinking.
I got
Go ahead, Marcus.
Jordan Brooks, LJ Collier, Rashad Penny, Malik McDowell, Jermaine Ifedi. It's the Seahawks, right? The Seahawks team is so unpredictable year to year. They're the most likely team to take the 30th ranked player at 9 in this draft.
I look at Green Bay and I think, everyone's just assuming that they're going to take a wide receiver. I don't see it. I don't. I would not be surprised at all if they try to do it with later round guys and don't go that route early on. But, that's just my gut feeling with that team. Now, do you understand the question a little bit better, Chad?
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, okay.
I just, again, it
was clumsily asked.
It's all about the quarterbacks in this draft. It's going to be so much fun because some people are saying none of these quarterbacks are any good. And I've heard that story before, and they get picked early, and some of them aren't going to turn out. So like the surprises, to me, the things that I'm looking at, I'm always looking, like my job is to look for the things that other people are going to be surprised about, so that people can be like, oh yeah, that's right. That is a possibility. So to me, seeing the Pittsburgh, seeing Tennessee, seeing Seattle, Atlanta, some of these teams are going to get quarterbacks, and then people will be like, oh my God, who expected that? I'm like, guys, this happens every year, right? So this is part of my job. So that's why I like talking about that, because it gets people mad. Like their quarterbacks aren't any good. Look, Patrick Mahomes wasn't on people's first round mock drafts this time of year, the class he came out. I put him at 26, and the headline on the NFL.com was surprise quarterback in the first round, in this. So like it happens all the time. And so that's what I'm going to love. Those are the surprises that I like to see, the things that are just, I think are possible and people aren't buying into. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, that's why this is fun, because we get to talk about this stuff. You know, you get to buy your Marcus Mariota jersey. Marcus gets to hate on the Steelers. Everybody gets to do their thing. It's awesome. Love it.
Well, you actually already kind of mentioned one on this podcast, the Colts trading up to potentially get a quarterback. I don't think a lot of people would be expecting that, given that they just acquired Matt Ryan. But I think that's an example of what you're talking about, although that wouldn't be as big a shocker as maybe Tennessee or something like that. But either way, really good stuff, man. Chad, even though you're our guest, it's tradition. I do always give the final word to @Marcus Mosher.
What's so fascinating about this draft is there's so many teams that have multiple first-round picks. And when you have multiple first-round picks, you can be really aggressive. You can kind of control certain spots of the board, like Green Bay right now having picks as a 22 and 28, or the Chiefs having picked 29 and 30 back-to-back. It's going to make for a wild draft. I think you're going to see a lot of movement, especially in the middle of the draft, teams trying to just go get the players that make the most sense for them rather than waiting. I got to believe, Chad, this is the draft that has the most teams with multiple first-round picks, maybe ever. We've got the Eagles with 3 first-round picks. I think that's going to create a wild draft.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I love it.
I just noticed, by the way, during this podcast too, that Chad, you played some D&D in your time. I could tell just by when you were making fun, you were a little too close to realistic. You definitely played some D&D. You have a 20-sided dice somewhere.
Back in the day, I played some. I played more Risk actually than
yeah, D&D. But Risk has become like you work for Google and you're cool because you still play a board game. It's always Risk. Like if you're that guy that's a tech guy and you drive a convertible Audi and you're living in a place that looks like so everything's stainless steel, and you walk into your condo and you say, "Computer, make me an espresso." You're that guy that says, "But I have Risk in my closet."
I was not that guy in 1985. I assure you, none of those things existed. And so I'm not sure what you're talking about, but no, I appreciate that. And I didn't mean to step on Marcus's last word.
That's all right.
Oh, no, I wanted your comment. I really, honestly, next time you're on, I really want to get what your Clue strategy is, because I know you played some serious Clue back in the 80s.
Always candlestick in the library, always.
I always had to be the housekeeper, Mrs. White. Always.
Mr. Green.
Yeah. Oh, I'm impressed you even know one of the characters' names.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. By the way, underrated movie from the mid 80s. Yes. I saw that movie at like the Dollar Theater or something like that. So there you go. I think we have addressed enough today.
Yeah.
He's at Chad Ryder. That's REUTER on Twitter. You can check out his draft analysis. You got a mock coming out tomorrow, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. So
4
check that out,
baby.
Yeah, 4-round mock draft on NFL.com. He is at Marcus_Mosher. He's the host of Locked On Cowboys. He covers the Raiders for USA Today. You can find me at Harrison NFL. We will catch you guys tomorrow. Thank you, Chad, for coming on. Talk to y'all later.
Thank you.